Welcome to the Poetry Corner. Today we're talking about Ted Kooser, the Poet Laureate of the United States. I'm going to read Casting Reels. You find them at flea markets and yard sales, old South Bends and flugers with fancy engraving, knurled knobs, and pearl handles, spooled with the fraying line of long stories snarled into silence. Not just exaggerated tales of Wally's bass and catfish, but of hardworking men who on Saturdays sought out the solace of lakes, who on weekdays at desks or standing on ladders or next to clattering machines, played out their youth and strength, waiting to set the hook, and then, in their 60s, felt the line go slack and reeled the years back empty. They are the ones who got away. What I think Ted Kooser is talking about in this poem is he's drawing the parallels between men, or really people in general in their old age, them reflecting on their memories and fishing, and I think this particularly pertains to old men, because not only is fishing a leisure activity for the old men, but he uses the fishing metaphor as like a way to show patience and like the casting the line and the reeling of the line.
The process of life.
Is the process of life, and catching that fish is like that moment of breakthrough, and it's just the memories you remember. And what do you think old men are thinking about as they're waiting for the fish but that big moment?
It's just anticipation, and they cast out the lifeline.
Really, the lifeline. And
They
you never
memory.
forget when you catch that 50-pound bass and you post it on your wall all proud. That's what
Can bass
he's
even reach 50 pounds? You'd never forget it if you caught one.
Ted Kooser, I think so. Got any more on that? Just great metaphor there. Men and fishing and memories and lifelines, and it's really good. Just
Intertwines.
intertwines perfectly.
I like it.
It's good.
Mine's better.
What's the next one? Oh. Which one's yours? Read yours.
Don't drink any. Mine is titled Father. I'm going to read it to you. It's dated May 19th, 1999. Today you would be 97 if you had lived, and we would all be miserable, you and your children driving from clinic to clinic, an ancient, fearful hypochondriac, and his fretful son and daughter asking directions, trying to read the complicated, fading map of cures. But with your dignity intact, you have been gone for 20 years. And I am glad for all of us, although I miss you every day. The heartbeat under your necktie, the hand cupped on the back of my neck, old spice in the air, your voice delighted with stories. On this stage here, you love to relate that at the moment of your birth, your mother glanced out the window and saw lilacs in bloom. Well, today lilacs are blooming in side yards, all over Iowa, still welcoming you. I think it's beautiful. I think it's brilliant. What Ted Kooser is doing here is he's making it okay for his father to die. I think he's accepting it. He's gone through, denial, anger, depression, stages of grief.
I remember learning about that in my English class back my senior year. The stages of grief.
Was that like 80 years ago? They're probably different now. Anyway, and I think he wrote this at the point of acceptance. We know it's 20 years from now, but the loss of a parent is probably one of the hardest losses that one will have to face in a lifetime. So it could well take 20 years to get over it. And he's coming to terms with it. And he says, if you had lived, we would all be miserable. And although, despite how happy they would all still be if he was still alive and doing well, they know that they would all be miserable if he was still in pain and suffering, that the cancer, well, we're led to believe it's some kind of illness or ailment. lilacs are blooming in side yards all over Iowa, still welcoming you. They're
And
still
like
there.
it ties that
Circle
together at
of
the
light.
end, the birth and the end of the lilacs remain the same, like their love.
Yeah, they're still there. Even though he's gone,
Symbolic of him now. And
it's remembrance. They're still welcoming his spirit. I just love his writing.
It resonates. It's good. Ted Kooser. Award-winning poet right there. He's good. It's from the Great Plains.
Midwestern.
Yeah.
First Midwestern poet laureate
Ever.
Well, there can only be one first, so of course it's ever.
My poem is called Surviving. There are days when the fear of death is ubiquitous as light. It illuminates everything. Without it, I might not have noticed this ladybird beetle, bright as a drop of blood, on the window's white sill. Her head no bigger than a period. Her eyes like needle points. She has stopped for a moment to rest. Knees locked, wing covers hiding the delicate lace of her wings. As the fear of death, so attentive to everything living, comes near her, the tiny antenna stops moving.
It's an intense last line.
Statement, yeah.
Statement.
This poem, I feel, talks about how when you think about death or you experience death or you get close to death, it makes you appreciate things more. And in this poem, he says it illuminates everything, and without having that fear or thinking about it, he wouldn't have noticed the little things in life, like the ladybird beetle on the windowsill, and noticed all the little things about it. And he uses a lot of metaphors and similes in here. He says bright as a drop of blood, eyes like needle points. He uses very poignant words to describe it.
And they all relate back to death. It's kind of ironic because the poem is about surviving.
Mm-hmm.
It just really makes you appreciate the small things in life.
I think
About
it's
stringing together the small things
it's-
to see the bigger picture.
I think it's interesting that he uses a delicate creature, insect, to describe this poem of like such a hard time and the turmoil that they go through.
I think that's one of his abilities. He's Ted Kooser. He's brilliant. He's able to take the small things in life, the simple, trivial, mundane
I
things.
think we can agree on that.
Yeah.
And he makes it about much deeper things.
Yeah, and I don't think we even noticed this when we picked it out, but our poems almost interconnect, almost like they go right next to each other, but they're throughout different parts of the book. But mine's about
Lay off the pipe.
So mine's about like an old man reflecting on his life. Yours is about dying and getting over it, grieving and like accepting it. And yours is like looking at life after death and
After your experience.
like yeah.
I think it's great.
It's amazing.
And that is Ted Kooser.
So when you look at tiles on the floor or a kitchen sink or a vase, what do you think about?